How deep is the Wim Hof Method? Now, this is a question that is incredibly important to anyone who really wants to get into the practice. And what I mean by depth is not about how effective it is. Over the years, I've written 2 books about how much the Wim Hof Method changed my life. It allowed me to control an autoimmune illness. There's anxiety benefits. There's tons of benefits to the Wim Hof Method. But the question of depth is different. What I mean by depth is after you have learned the basic techniques, how much more is left to learn? Now, if we think about something like the traditions of yoga, something that goes back 5,000 years with many, 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 many teachers, it's very clear that yoga is incredibly deep. There are many different styles and forms, and you can study in one tradition or you can study in many traditions, and you will pretty much always have something more to learn along the way. There's new techniques, there's new approaches, there's new philosophies. How similar is the Wim Hof Method in terms of depth? Well, if we think about the official reckoning of the Wim Hof Method, there are 3 main pillars. The first is cold exposure. It's getting in to cold water and then realizing that your nervous system wants to fight it, and then realizing that you can relax in that stimulus. That is the cold exposure method. The breath work, which should be practiced separately from the cold exposure, is hyperventilating, exhaling, holding your breath, a recovery breath, hyperventilating, exhaling, holding your breath, and that is the basic breathing technique. The third pillar of the Wim Hof Method is mindset, which is a very ill-defined concept in the method. It's more like where your mind goes when you're trying these other techniques, and then taking that into your own life. But really, when I talk about depth, that's honestly all there is to the Wim Hof Method. There's not much more, and you can even look at their website, and there's these 3 pillars. There's a couple different versions of the techniques you can do, but it's not something that you can't learn on your own actually pretty easily. There's not a tremendous well of knowledge where you will continually finding, here's a new breath technique, here's the one that lets you walk through walls, here's the one that blah, blah, blah. The Wim Hof Method is not a deep technique. It is a shallow technique that is incredibly beneficial. Now, I think this is a useful thing to understand if you were, say, contemplating taking a teacher training course with the Wim Hof Method. The question of will you learn new and secret techniques that he only will teach to very special people who have qualified themselves. Really, as far as I know, there are 2 sort of more advanced techniques. These have to do with what is called DMT breathing or brown fat activation. And those are really just minor variations off the normal breathing technique, which instead of exhaling, you inhale, and then you do a sort of a patterned squeeze throughout your body, and presto changeo, you now know these 2 other techniques. I'm not going to actually tell you exactly how to do them in this video. You can Google around. They're all over the internet on how you might want to do that. So you're not going to learn a lot of new things if you go through sort of these advanced training module courses, because the Wim Hof Method just simply is not deep, which doesn't mean that it's not beneficial. Now I'm going to complicate this whole thing just a little bit, because there is something about practicing a method for a long period of time that does bring an element of knowledge and depth to this method, or honestly anything that you do a lot. I've been doing the Wim Hof Method for 10 years, which means I wake up in the morning, I do the breath work, there are cold showers, there are ice baths, there are many things that I do on the regular, and I will say that my practice has gotten deeper, right? My practice has gotten more involved. I've seen my physiology change and modulate, both positive and negative, over the decade that I've done this, and in that sense, I can deepen my practice of it. So my individual relationship with the Wim Hof Method and your individual relationship can absolutely change over time. But that doesn't mean that there's new techniques that are specifically involved with the Wim Hof Method. And this is actually, interestingly enough, partially because the Wim Hof Method intentionally, the people who organize the Wim Hof Method intentionally want to restrict it to just a few very specific techniques. And when the techniques sort of spread out in other directions, they declare that this is not the Wim Hof Method, that you are now straying into other methods of breathing and breath work. So, these are my opinions about the depths of the Wim Hof Method. You're not going to learn new techniques if you go to learn from instructors or from Wim himself. He's not going to give you this other thing that lets you communicate directly to your pineal gland if you make these cool 5 or 6 sharp movements. Instead, what you might get is encouragement to keep up with your practice, to do it longer, and then deepen your own personal experience with it. So again, my opinion, the Wim Hof Method is not a deep practice on its own, but you can deepen your own practice within it. All right, well, thank you so much. If you want to see how my own practice has changed over the years, there's a video about my 10 years with the Wim Hof Method that is out there. And I can also talk in that video how there's both incredible benefits at first, but also how things sort of plateau and level off over time, and in some cases even get worse. It's all very complex, and it's all part of the journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.